our list, so, and I've seen something embedded in a bill that refers to regional planning commissions. Never would have thought it. And it's a matter of them reporting or to do something.
Right.
So,
And so part of the challenge, to the extent that we are a quasi-public body, is we cannot be having discussions via email, but at the same time, if somebody does see something in, or becomes aware of something in a bill, to forward that information to Nancy, so she becomes aware of it, provides an opportunity for that information to get out to the entire group.
well, by the next time we meet, we should have a wording, text, bill wording on these. And when we meet, again, like Ken says, we're kind of behind the 8 ball at a small period of time. We may take a look at these and we may say, no, that's not that important. No, this is, you know, so we'll catch up. We will catch up. We always do.
So
Yes.
you wanted to have a discussion now on what we're going to do next?
Well, yeah, I'd like just a sense of the group in terms of whether or not the process that we used generally last year, I mean, if we look back 3 or 4 years, we've actually had a separate subcommittee that was created, that
That's true.
did some extra meetings, that literally went through. We've sort of done it as a committee of the whole in the past, and all of those things have advantages and disadvantages, and I guess my question at this point in time is there a consensus or a sense of the group in terms of what sort of model we want to use for this year coming up? So if you've got some thoughts about it?
Well, didn't we do one last year, David?
No, the model that we used last year was, I think at these meetings, we decided which bills we were going to support or oppose.
Well, we had a meeting at your office, remember?
We had one meeting.
Right.
One meeting, and then it was after that, it was decided that the best way to do this was not by committee to decide, but the committee as a whole.
Well, hold on, I'm not, to let the board, okay, so I think that what I would suggest is something which is a combination of a small group getting together and reading all the bills that seem relevant and making a series of recommendations in a meeting, which can be supplemented by anyone else at that meeting of the whole to suggest bills to address. I mean, I think that is the most efficient way to do it, because bringing a pile of 50 bills to a whole group like this and having everyone try to sort through them and decide what we're going to support, I don't think that's functional. That's dysfunctional.
Each year's been challenging. Yeah.
Thank you. I was just going to provide some perspective. It's not about the proposal or suggestion that Steve just made, but in the past, because we've been doing this for some number of years, we have had a legislative policy committee that kind of works in parallel to this association. And that policy committee was meeting with a level of frequency even more frequent than this body. Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons that committee was envisioned was because things move so quickly. Sometimes you need to get an answer and you need to get it fast. And if this group isn't scheduled to meet, then that committee would have some autonomy or ability to move forward. Well, in the process of that, being used, this group decided it was uncomfortable with the Legislative Policy Committee making decisions that hadn't gone to this board first. And so that then resulted in us questioning, again, as a group, what's the point of having a Legislative Policy Committee that is just duplicating the discussions that we're having among this group. So if we are going to do something like Steve is suggesting, it seems that it is either a support role for this group and then they are out of the way and done, or it's a group that has some ability to, I guess, make some decisions that this body doesn't always get the chance to bless.
Actually, we have done that in the past, because something would come up and I would be standing in Concord and go, okay, what do I do? And I said, at the minimum, I can always sign in support or sign in against without literally having a letter, and we can deal with a letter later if we want to. So, I mean, there are times when I have sought permission to act short of this whole committee, and it's unfortunate, but that's reality.
Right, and that's really exciting, we don't want to set up how we operate on the basis of those few examples, but we do need to acknowledge that sometimes that does happen. So given, go ahead, Jeff.
Well, I was going to bring up another aspect of it. The RPC directors met with a couple other associations at our retreat this last year, and what I found very interesting is some other associations don't take a support oppose, choice of that. They because these things change, they evolve. We might start out supporting and then opposing, and it gets very awkward, especially the conversation we just had where people are making decisions for us, and then we're making decisions for our boards. It gets a little strung out, I think. So I would be very much in favor of the idea of tracking, identifying legislation that we should track, and that we want to educate the public and our membership on the impacts, potential impacts, planning impacts of the legislation, and maybe at least hold off, oppose, support, until it's more mature and there's that information is more stable.
That's an interesting point, because remember, this is a process whereby we've missed something in the House, we weren't ready to take a position, and it's okay because we can do so in the Senate if the bill passed. Sometimes we have to do that, or if it's in the Senate, there's no position because we haven't had time to take a position. Catch up with it when it goes to the House.
So, but I think, just to sort of paraphrase what Jeff is saying, is that if our philosophy going into looking at these bills is to decide we want to watch, it's not applicable, we're not going to worry about it at all, or we want to watch it or support it or oppose it. That's sort of one way of approaching the bills. Another way of approaching them is to attempt, if there's something of interest, is to write a letter that attempts to point out issues or implications of that law. If you do this, then this is going to happen, or this might be an end result. And that's a different philosophy. I mean, that's approaching it from a different perspective.
It's like a state agency would do in their
Correct.
work.
So I guess I'm interested sort of in that philosophical thing, because what the letter looks like coming out over my signature on behalf of this group will look and sound differently if the general folk. I mean, if there's a bill introduced this time around to abolish all regional planning commissions, we might still decide not to oppose it and instead write a letter. But under those circumstances,
I think we could be more powerful, and we can have a deeper message than just support or oppose. I think the idea is to actually provide information that will change the outcome.
Well, I always tease Cordell Johnston about this. I always say, oh, this is a Cordell's position. It's not really Cordell's, of course, but his position many times is he walks in and says, I'm not opposed, we're not opposed, we're not supportive. We have some concerns.
We want to influence the legislation.
And that's okay. That's okay.
so I mean, again, we have had the model, sort of oppose, support, watch, and we've also talked more recently about this sort of pointing out the issues, expressing concerns, things of that sort. I'm interested in some feedback here in terms of.
Well, I like to support an opposed concept, but the problem is the amendments trip that up, because an amendment can completely change something we've supported or opposed. So I hear what Jeff's saying, and I guess that's a way to avoid that, getting into that trap.
Other thoughts?
I'm going to speak from a regional planning staff perspective, and from a staff person, I am thinking, I'm always more comfortable with the role of trying to share what I know as planning professional to the legislatures who aren't planning professionals, to try to educate them or influence them to understand the implications of a particular legislative proposal. Again, as a staff person, I don't know that it's my role to say that I should support the bill or oppose the bill. Now, those of you who are civilian members of this body might feel more of an advocacy role, but I just feel from a staff level that, it's to share what I know as a professional planner and the implications.
I think it's important.
Other thoughts? Steve?
We either support or oppose, I'm sorry, I mean, you can educate them, the members of the committee, why the idea is a bad idea or a good idea in your letter. And I think you gotta fish or get big, either you support it or oppose it. You know, well, I don't think it's a good idea, we just say, oh, these are our thoughts. Yeah, you oppose it, yeah, because ultimately, the bill is either gonna be voted up or down, I mean, that's what the whole business is about.
Or amendment.
Or amended.
Well, then we can change our position, but I don't see it makes any sense to sit on the sidelines.
Yes.
Yeah, as a layperson, in considering the fact that the commissions are beholden to their respective communities, is it incumbent on us to forward things to the town administrator? This bill is coming up. If we realize there may be a ramification for our respective community?
Okay, and that's the conversation I want to have for
Oh, okay.
agenda item number 7, in
Fine.
terms of, because we did talk about
Mhm.
changing our approach and using the information that we get from our legislative consultant to provide value to our member communities. And so conveying that information to our communities is an issue I want to talk about, in terms of
Okay.
what that vehicle might be.
Fine.
So if you don't,
I'll
we
hold
do
that.
want to talk about it, yeah. But I am interested in this, in the, sort of the because to the extent that it comes out over my signature and I'm representing you, I want to make sure that the phraseology that we use, the way that we approach this, is something that everybody feels comfortable with, or at least that there's a consensus about, general consensus about. And I'm hearing sort of two different ways. One is, you do make a conscious decision, and if you oppose it or support it, that you say that. The other way is a bit more nuanced in the sense of expressing concerns or highlighting implications or impacts of a particular bill or decision. Other thoughts or comments about sort of how we approach all of that?
I think you can do both, in that if you're supporting in that letter, or that communication, I think you can easily say, and this is why we are supporting this, because of the impact it has on X, Y, Z. And the opposite, I don't think it's an either or, that's just my
Okay.
comment. I could be wrong.
Other thoughts?
Well, I have a thought about that thought.
Let's hear it.
Well, we've always done that. If we're going to support or oppose a bill, we're always going to explain why. I think what I hear us talking about is, should we be going that far? And again, I'm not suggesting we should never go that far. There might be times when the situation calls for that, but I'm not an elected official. The people who I'm talking to, if I'm testifying, are. So, I can tell them what I know about this particular bill and the implications that it has, but, that's what they're elected to decide. But there was a comment made when we had this debate in the past, or this discussion in the past, was that if you don't either, so a legislative committee member looks at a piece of correspondence that comes in, they're going to the punchline. You oppose it or do you support it? If it doesn't say anything, maybe it doesn't have much value. But I don't think all legislators are that way.
Yes, Glenn?
Maybe we keep all options on the table for those situations where we feel strongly enough as a group to oppose or support. it goes out that way. If the group is more, or the group is less inclined to want to take a firm stand, but yet still wants to provide education, for lack of a better term, information to the committee or to the bill sponsors, you can do that as well.
That's a Cordell.
Right.
Well, that's also a discussion among us, between the civilians and the professionals, on every piece of legislation. And our punt position is always watch. So, you know, we have the mechanism to take whatever approach we want to take with the current setup, which is why I like it.
And there's
Aye,
never,
aye.
yeah, there's never a
All
time
options
that
are
if
available.
something is a watch and it takes a dramatic change in committee, that I don't inform you in a heartbeat and say, you know what, this was just a watch, you might take another look at this and decide differently now.
But I don't think
That's
we've
okay.
ever done anything crazy,
No,
you know,
not at
where,
all.
where we got an elected official totally apoplectic.
Yeah.
I think we've been pretty conservative and
Oh, absolutely.
judicious in our approach.
I've always said that next to the Vatican, regional planning commissions are among the most conservative people I
Well, I don't
know.
know if I can
I don't know if we want to go there. Okay, so
So, I'm not sure if I'm clear about the whole committee or not committee
well,
structure.
that was, I'm hearing that we want to keep our options open. The next question then is, do we want to create, are people willing to create a subgroup that will be willing to take the information that Nancy provides, and prior to our next meeting, spend some time with it and come back with some thoughts and recommendations to the entire group? Is that where you were going about?
Yeah,
Would that be
and
then?
I think, I just want to say that I think that if we establish a group, and I think that we need to be clear about here's sort of the charge, if you will, and I think we need to be, you know, respectful of the time and energy that that group puts in. Because it just, I've seen this group sort of unravel some of that stuff sometimes, and it's just, I think that if we're gonna, whichever way we go, I think, you know, we need to say, here's your charge, and I am comfortable with you making decisions at various levels on our behalf, or not. I mean, because I don't think it's fair to set up the committee and have them do an enormous amount of work, and then, you know, that work does not, they can't carry through on it, or we, you know, change our minds afterwards or something. I just don't think that's fair.
That's been a discussion.
I get it. I've been on this subgroup, and I've never felt that I was stepped on by the big group. You know, we took an initial look at information. Other members of the group chimed in during that process and brought stuff to our attention. I think that's great. And I never felt that when we came back to the big group, anything was out of line. You know, there was additional input, so I didn't feel stepped
Okay,
on.
no, that's good,
as a member.
feedback to hear. Steve?
At the end of the day, this process involves some group of people sitting down with a stack of bills, reading them, digesting them, and coming back to Duke saying, this one, this one, this one, we support, these we don't know, and and that's what it all comes down to. I guess, when are the bills gonna be ready? Do you think, do you have an idea when we'll have them?
They have to be out by January 9th.
Okay.
Not just the LSR format, but the actual bill text.
Right, they have to basically sign off at that point.
Right.
Signing off means, boom, we now have text. Some of these could show up tomorrow, because they've been out there for a while, and I don't see that people have been adding a lot of co-sponsors. There's a couple that have a couple co-sponsors, one in particular on, speaking of water, flood control, the first one, relative to towns affected by the Merrimack River flood control compact and the Connecticut River control compact and making an appropriation therefore. I mean, that clearly has a number of sponsors. A number of sponsors.
Right, so,
But-
so I mean, that's what it comes down to, is you have that meeting and then you come back to this group, which I'm more than happy to volunteer for, once again.
Okay, so thank you. Now, and let me just hold your volunteering in abeyance just for a moment. Is there anyone else who has been a member of the subgroup that wants to reflect one way or the other? Either, as Glenn had mentioned, even though the whole group may have changed, you did not find that is sort of walking all over the group. What you, okay. Any other people want to volunteer? Any thoughts or feelings about that? Okay, seeing none. Steve, you're willing to volunteer to be part of a smaller group?
Yes.
Subgroup?
And what happened to Priest? Who's gonna
From the
volunteer?
outside.
He knew the volunteering part was coming up next.
Yeah, I know, well,
You could
let's,
volunteer.
yeah, I think you
We'll
indicated
nominate
that.
We'll nominate him.
Just take a few more people.
Oh, I'm willing to do it again, I enjoy doing it.
Okay.
So,
And I'd be happy to donate a facility somewhere in this building to.
Well, and how big a group was it? Was it 3 people last time?
Oh, it's varied from.
Oh, no, when we did with David, we had like, I would say 5 or 6
Yeah.
people.
Okay.
And we had, 3 or 4 reps were there, watching our performance.
Okay, great.
Has anyone been terribly upset with what's happened in the past? What we've been doing in the past to review these things?
I don't think so, but it is a discussion we talk about, so I.
Well, I know, why have the discussion? If everyone is happy pretty much with what's happening, why have a prolonged discussion about it? If anyone was unhappy, then I could see having, a longer discussion about it, but I don't see that here at all. I think we're just rehashing old territory.
Do it every year.
So Steve, would you be willing to be the point person in
I
terms
would
of,
be willing to be the point.
and if there are, and Glenn, you'd like to join, and if there are other people who would like to join, it'd be a matter of perhaps sending out an email or having Becky send out an email, letting folks know when the meeting is going to occur and where, and those that want to attend and are available can, so it's a fairly loosely constructed.
No one else is just dying to jump on board here?
Okay.
Tim?
Tim? Okay, good, thank you.
Yeah, you were at the meeting we had with David, and maybe you put David to join us.
Okay. Anybody else want to volunteer at this point in time?
I think, Glenn, don't you want?
Did I?
No, you were nodding very
Yeah, I thought-
affirmative.
No, I was acknowledging
Oh,
that
okay.
Tim had raised his hand and was not
Oh, we
being.
need one more. We need at least one.
Just another way a nod can be misinterpreted.
And
Don't
Tim,
move.
Tim does a good job at this because
Oh, okay.
he serves on that committee for our planning commission.
Okay,
and,
all right.
Has a real interest in it, so
We could nominate a missing RPC director.
I think you should do that.
Or we can ask him when he comes back
I
in.
think David's on.
I like the idea of having it not be staff.
Not what?
Not be staff. Not be staff.
Doesn't hurt to have one,
Well, one would be
as
good.
long as we outvote them.
NBS.
So,
NBS.
So, Steve, since you volunteered to sort of be the point person, can you, in a sentence or two, indicate what you understand your charge to be?
And I've done this many times, I did it once for Common Cause. My charge will be, we will get into a room for a long period of time with a stack of bills, and we will read them and try to come up with, pithy summaries that we will then prepare some kind of summary memo from the committee to this whole group saying these are the bills that we think are important and the position the committee or the association as a whole should take. This is basically what I envision, would be happening.
Okay, anybody feeling comfortable with that? Okay.
I thought when you said his charge, you were gonna give $1
Oh, you're
figure.
just,
Yeah.
you're getting volunteers.
A dollar figure?
You have an
Oh,
opportunity.
yeah.
Oh, there he is.
David, do you want to be part of this legislative policy?
Sure, I'll be glad to.
Oh,
It's okay with Tim, I'll be okay.
But
Thank
I'm going to do it here sometime between now and January 15th.
Okay, great.
Okay. And then I guess the next question, I'm going to jump ahead in the agenda a little bit, talking about the next meeting of this group. If you're planning on meeting sometime prior to January 15th,
Does that make sense? Let me just ask. Do you think all that makes sense, saying sometime, is that too late? Is that?
I would do it earlier. I mean, only because.
Does anybody have a calendar? I don't have a calendar.
Well,
If
6 days between
if
the
bills
9th and the
had come
15th.
out,
Right.
they'll just be sitting.
What's the
there.
9th?
The 9th is a Friday?
Yes.
You all want to have a weekend meeting? Okay.
Friday afternoon's good.
Friday afternoon, we may not have.
Early quick.
How about Monday, that would be the 11th?
12th.
12th. How about Monday the 12th, or Monday, or 13th, or Tuesday the 13th?
That's fine, as long as Monday is in the afternoon and Tuesday.
What do you-
That's a problem for me, because I have a night meeting on Monday, and I have a long trip back.
So
Yeah,
Tuesday,
Tuesday morning,
Tuesday morning? Okay, we're gonna shoot for Tuesday morning.
and that's
The
the
13th.
13th,
Yes.
and you want to have it here?
Well, I'm offering these facilities because
Okay,
it's easy for me to do.
So Nancy, in terms of when this group,
Tim, is that okay with you?
as a whole, should be in a position to start taking positions or deciding how active or proactive we want to be with respect to certain bills, would meeting in mid to late January work, or is that too soon, too
At
late?
the very latest, mid.
Okay.
And I'm assuming bills are out at that point, that we have wording.
By the 9th.
13th, so.
No, by the 13th.
Well, I
When you
would
say
by
out,
the
I thought
9th.
they're out by the 9th.
No, by the 9th, they have to sign off on them. It doesn't mean that we're gonna see them online right away.
Oh.
Well, so maybe the 13th is too soon.
Oh, I don't think so.
Well,
I
but
think
the-
tentatively, let's set it for the 13th.
We'll have some bills.
If not all.
Okay.
Okay.
But I think we just, let's leave that flexible, because I sure would hate to say the 18th, and then suddenly we've got 2 pages, 3 pages, 4 pages of bill wording sitting there.
Yeah, and I think last year, we got bills kind of all through January. Like, I mean, there was a big chunk of them that came out, and then they kind of
Right.
trickled out for a long while.
So in terms of this group meeting again, if the subgroup is meeting on the 13th, then presumably we could meet later on that same week or the following week. But if we wait until the last week of January, you're feeling antsy about stuff starting to happen.
Real antsy. By then, they'll already have public hearings scheduled.
Okay. So, meeting later on that same week, like on the Thursday, the 15th? When's the executive director's meeting again?
I believe it's the 8th.
Ooh, okay, so that won't work.
Is that right, Jeff?
Yeah.
Usually the second Tuesday, second Thursday.
Okay,
Yes, yeah.
so we can't peek, it's nice when we can piggyback on that.
Well, does it have to be the 8th, or you guys have some leeway?
I don't know, Jeff, if you want to deviate, I think we.
I don't think we want to.
Always a pain to deviate.
No.
So would Thursday afternoon, the 15th work for folks?
What's that?
If the whole group meeting Thursday afternoon, the 15th, your group meets on the 13th.
15th, okay.
Is that?
The afternoon?
Okay,
As
so
long as we
assuming,
understand these are like tentative dates, because I can't predict what's gonna happen.
no, understand.
Save the date.
And there needs to
Save the
be,
date.
yeah. Okay, so at least block out on your calendar the afternoon of the 15th. We'll have to make sure that there's space here to meet, assuming we meet here, or find an alternative space. Okay. Does anybody else have any other questions under the 2015 legislative session sort of next steps? If you feel comfortable with where we're going on?
Are we going to have, I'm sorry,
Yes, go ahead.
are we going to have a breakfast orientation?
Croc TV.